In this video, I will tell you about strange, creepy, and incredible stories that have happened to real people. Interested? Then let's start. The story of Juliane Koepcke. In December 1971, 17-year-old Juliane Koepcke was thrown out of a plane after it was struck by lightning. She fell from a height of about 3 kilometers, still strapped to her seat, and somehow survived. Then she had to endure 9 days of wandering through the Amazon jungle before being rescued by loggers. She was the only survivor of LANSA Airlines Flight 508, in which 93 people died. The tragic story of Todd Beamer. Todd Beamer was only 32 years old when his plane was hijacked by terrorists on September 11th. Beamer, a passenger on United Airlines Flight 93, had to think fast. First, he tried to call the telephone service provider ATT, but both of his calls were cut off during the connection. Then Beamer tried to call his wife, but that call was also interrupted. Finally, he contacted airphone operators and was able to reach a supervisor named Lisa Jefferson. He asked Jefferson to tell his pregnant wife and 2 sons that he loved them, but he also outlined a heroic plan to fight back against the terrorists, along with his fellow passengers and the flight crew. This is exactly what he did, saving a huge number of lives. This plane, although it crashed, became the only one that did not reach the terrorists' intended target. The story of Judy Garland. By the age of 17, Judy Garland had already developed a dependence on so-called stimulant pills, i.e., amphetamines, and studio executives tormented her because of her weight and appearance. One of them called her a fat hunchback and advised her to smoke more to suppress her appetite. Garland's grueling work schedule, combined with the strict diet of black coffee, chicken soup, and cigarettes imposed on her by her Hollywood bosses, led to her body dysmorphia and substance abuse. The star attempted suicide at least 20 times and died at the age of 47 from an overdose of sedative drugs. The incredible story of Ashcraft. In October 1983, Tammy Oldham Ashcraft and her fiancé, Richard Sharp, set out on a 6,500-kilometer voyage from Tahiti to San Diego. 3 weeks into the journey, they were hit by a Category 4 hurricane, which capsized their yacht and left Ashcraft unconscious. About 27 hours later, she regained consciousness and found that her fiancé was gone, and she was stranded alone in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. With only a sextant and a clock at her disposal, Ashcraft sailed for 41 days until she reached the coast of Hawaii. The story of Harry Haft. A fight for survival. Harry Haft was still a teenager when he was sent to Auschwitz. As soon as he arrived at the camp, the Nazi guards learned that he had some boxing experience and ordered him to fight other prisoners in boxing matches, with the loser being executed. Forced to literally fight for his life, Haft did not lose a single match, even though he knew many of his opponents, because the Nazis often sent people from the same city to the same concentration camps. From 1943 to 1945, he had to fight at least 76 prisoners. It was not until April 1945 that Haft managed to escape. During the death march, he killed a Nazi soldier and stole his uniform. Then Haft hid for weeks, running from village to village. Accustomed to fighting to the death, he even killed an elderly couple who offered him refuge, suspecting they had realized he was not a Nazi. By the time he reached Germany under Allied control, he weighed only 50 kilograms and spent the next 2 years recovering in a refugee camp. But by 1947, he decided to fight again and immigrated to America to become a professional boxer, and eventually fought against the best in the sport. The story of Hisashi Ouchi. On September 30th, 1999, Hisashi Ouchi was exposed to the highest dose of radiation in human history. Ouchi, a 35-year-old laboratory technician at the Tokaimura nuclear plant in Japan, was manually mixing a uranium solution directly over an open tank and accidentally added too much uranium, which immediately caused a violent explosion. For the next 83 days, Ouchi suffered unimaginable agony as the radiation penetrated his body, destroying his DNA and causing his skin to melt. And although he pleaded for death, the doctors refused to listen to him and kept him alive against his will for almost 3 agonizing months. The story of George Stinney Jr. Convicted of the murder of 2 white girls in 1944, with no physical evidence whatsoever, 14-year-old George Stinney Jr. became the youngest person in U.S. history to be executed in the electric chair. When he was executed, he was so small that the executioner could not attach the electrode to his right leg. He even had to place a phone book on the seat so the electric chair would work properly. Stinney survived the first 2,400-volt jolt, during which the oversized hood slipped and exposed his tears. It took 2 more jolts before he died. The Disappearance of Joe Pichler. Actor Joe Pichler got his first role at just 6 years old, appearing in a commercial for a Seattle department store. Soon after, he moved to Los Angeles, where he first appeared in the 1999 teen movie Varsity Blues, and then landed leading roles in 2 installments of the Beethoven franchise. Pichler then returned to his hometown of Bremerton, Washington, to attend high school. He planned to return to Hollywood after getting his braces off, but this never happened. In the early morning of January 5th, 2006, Pichler mysteriously disappeared without a trace, and the police have never been able to solve the case of his disappearance. The tragic story of Bob Marley. Towards the end of his life, Bob Marley's doctor told him that he had more cancer than he had ever seen in a living human being, and that he had only a few months left, so he might as well go back on tour and die there. 3 years earlier, in 1977, the reggae legend had been found to have melanoma under a toenail. Doctors removed the nail and nail bed, but Marley refused to amputate the toe itself to stop the spread of the disease, as this went against his Rastafarian religious beliefs. By 1980, the cancer had spread throughout his body, affecting his liver, lungs, and even his brain. Marley played his final concert on September 30th, 1980 in Pittsburgh, performing Queen's Another One Bites the Dust during the sound check, to the amazement of his roadies who did not know anything was wrong with him. He died 8 months later at the age of 36. The story of attorney Harry Hoy. In 1993, attorney Harry Hoy was killed in a fatal fall from the 24th floor when he tried to demonstrate the strength of the windows in his office to visiting students. This window check was his trademark stunt, which ultimately proved to be fatal. Hoy regularly threw himself at the window in front of spectators and safely bounced off the sturdy glass. But this time the prank ended in disaster. The glass accidentally popped out of the frame and sent one of the best and brightest lawyers flying off the skyscraper. The tragic story of the biologist couple. Between 2000 and 2003, biologist Amy Huguenard spent 3 summers in Alaska with her boyfriend Timothy Treadwell, studying and filming grizzly bears. Treadwell, known by the nickname the Grizzly Man, had met Huguenard during a book tour in 1996, and they immediately bonded over their love of animals. But then, in October 2003, the Haft bear that attacked them in their camp brutally mauled and devoured the couple. All the sounds were recorded. Subscribe to our channel to not miss the second part of these interesting, creepy, and fascinating stories.